You've probably seen it, right? Either in your own house or in one of those viral videos. It's that moment a puppy sees a mirror for the very first time. It is always adorable, and it's usually hilarious. But it really makes you wonder, what is actually going on in that little brain?
Just try to put yourself in their paws for a second. This little fluff ball is suddenly face to face with what looks like a brand new puppy. A puppy that copies its every move, freezes when it freezes, but here's the weird part, it has absolutely no smell. And their reactions are just the best, aren't they? You get those confused head tilts, maybe a little playbow and some pouncing, or even a few barks at this silent stranger that just showed up out of nowhere.
So this gets us to the big question. Is that puppy looking at its reflection and thinking, oh hey, that's me? Or is its brain trying to make sense of this whole situation in a completely different way? Well, let's dig in.
To really get to the bottom of this, we need to step away from all the cute videos and into the world of animal science. See, researchers have been fascinated by this for a long time, and they've come up with a really clever way to test for this kind of self-awareness.
The specific thing we're looking for here is something called self-recognition. And that's a pretty advanced concept, you know? It's the basic understanding of me, the idea that you are an individual totally separate from everything and everyone else.
But how on earth do you test for a sense of me in an animal that can't just tell you what it's thinking? Well, back in the 70s, scientists came up with this beautifully simple experiment, and it's famously known as the mirror test.
Okay, so the logic here is just brilliant. First, you put a little odorless mark, like a dot of paint, on the animal somewhere they can't see it directly, like on their forehead. Then you let them see the reflection. Now here's the key. If the animal sees the dot in the mirror and then tries to touch it on itself, not on the mirror, boom, it passes. That shows it understands the reflection is just an image of its own body.
So here's the kicker. Passing this test is incredibly rare in the animal kingdom. We're talking about a super exclusive club here. Great apes, dolphins, elephants, and a couple of really smart birds like magpies. Dogs, and by extension puppies, just don't pass this test. But hold on. Does that mean they're not smart? No way. Not even close.
To really get why a puppy acts the way it does, we have to do something really hard. We have to stop thinking like a human. We need to try and experience the world through their senses. The answer here isn't about intelligence. It's a deep dive into their biology.
So first up, let's talk about sight. A puppy's eyes are amazing at picking up motion. That's what they're built for. They're not so great at focusing on tiny, sharp details, like our eyes are. So for a puppy, that reflection isn't some crystal clear image of itself. It's more like a blurry, dog-shaped thing that's moving around. It's definitely interesting, but it's not what we'd call a familiar face.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. Vision isn't even their number one sense. A dog's whole world, their entire reality, is built on smell. Scent is how they tell who's a friend, who's a stranger, what's theirs. So that reflection in the mirror, it's got nothing. No scent at all. It's a silent, scent-free dog, which to a puppy is just fundamentally bizarre.
And this sensory information, or, the total lack of it, plugs directly into their most basic instincts. Puppies are literally hardwired to be social. They're programmed to check out anyone new, figure out if they're a playmate or a problem, and then react. So this weird, scentless dog is pushing all of those social buttons. Okay, so now that we know a bit about their sensory world, let's go back and decode those classic puppy mirror behaviors that we find so funny.
This just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? When a puppy does that little playbow at the mirror, it's using its built-in social skills to say, hey, want to play? If it barks, well, that's a totally logical response to a stranger suddenly appearing in its territory. When it shoves its nose right up to the glass, it's desperately trying to get some scent information that just isn't there. And eventually, after it figures out this weird dog never plays, never smells, and never does anything, it just learns to ignore it. It's irrelevant.
So you see, the puppy isn't failing some human test of intelligence. Not at all. It's actually passing its own test perfectly. It's acting exactly like a rational little creature should, based on the sensory information it's getting. It just so happens that the information from a mirror is pretty incomplete.
And when you realize that, it leads to a much bigger and I think much cooler idea. It really changes your whole perspective on what that mirror is even showing us in the first place.
There's this fantastic concept in biology called the Umwelt. It's the idea that every living thing exists inside its own unique bubble of perception, a world that's defined entirely by what its senses can pick up. So a bee's world is full of ultraviolet patterns on flowers that we can't see. A bat's world is a 3D map made of sound. And a puppy's world? It's a rich, complex universe of smells.
And that really is the big takeaway here.
The next time you see a puppy barking at its reflection, you're not seeing a failure of self-awareness. You're actually being given this incredible gift. That mirror isn't showing the puppy itself. No, it's opening up a little window for us, a direct look into its very different sensory world. A world of motion, instinct, and most of all, scent. And honestly, what could be cooler than getting a little glimpse of that?
If you enjoyed exploring the animal world with us, subscribe to Bugs to Beasts. There's always more to discover.